What's going on, guys? I'm your host Twan and we are back with another video. And today we'll be breaking down chapters 407 and 408 of ELECEED. Let's go ahead and lock in, shall we? 407 picks up with Jiwoo asking his friends how do they feel about non-awakeners. Now in ELECEED, this moral complexity stems from a fragile unspoken contract, a hidden society of superpowered individuals, the Awakeners, living alongside yet fundamentally dominating the unsuspecting civilian population of the non-awakeners. This dynamic creates a web of ethical dilemmas that the series has to navigate through, similar to sorcerers in Jujutsu Kaisen. The civilian vulnerability. Non-awakeners have zero defense against awakener abilities. Because of this, standard awakened traditions strictly forbid harming normal humans. However, this leaves everyday society dependent on morality of the awakeners to maintain safety and order. The Shibuya incident is the ultimate example of civilian vulnerability. During October 31st, 2018 attack, Kenjaku and cursed spears trapped thousands of non-sorcerers within the massive barrier. Because civilians cannot see curses, they suffered horrifying invisible attacks and were used as leverage to restrain Satoru Gojo. The Secret Agreement. Awakeners deliberately isolate their activities and abilities from the outside world to prevent mass panic. This separation fosters a mindset where Awakeners view themselves as an entirely distinct and often superior class, inherently raising questions about who they ultimately serve. Think about Naruto. Ninjas fundamentally operate in secrecy, deliberately hiding their supernatural abilities, martial arts, and living arrangements from normal citizens. This strict separation was the deliberate mechanism for survival and political leverage during the Warring States era. Corporate and political shadow influence. The wealthiest and most powerful awakener organizations seamlessly weave themselves into the civilian world, utilizing immense wealth to control global politics and economics. For an example, corporate and political shadow influence refers to covert methods used by special interests to shape public policies and elections out of the public eye. The most prominent example is the use of dark money and shadow lobbying, which bypasses standard disclosure laws to mask the true source of political power. A prime example of corporate and political shadow influence is the Arasaka Corporation from Cyberpunk. This mega corporation fundamentally privatizes the government of Night City. The cost of protection. Awakener factions often justify their unchecked power and aggressive territorial disputes by claiming they shield the normal world from threats. Yet these conflicts frequently endanger everyday life, exposing how civilian safety is often secondary to the political maneuvers of the awakened elites. The status quo, elitism. Many traditional awakener organizations and monarch families believe that their superior abilities grant them the right to rule. They adhere to the rigid internal codes where power justifies actions, perpetuating a self-serving cycle. Now, if this was One Piece, the people who would fit the description is the world nobles, the celestial dragons, who hold absolute political power, or at least the top-tier combatants who dominate the seas. The protagonist philosophy. Main characters like Jiwoo and his mentor Kaden challenge this elitist morality. They argue that the extraordinary power does not inherently make awakeners superior, and that power should be used to protect the weak rather than oppress or segregate them. The narrative constantly forces characters to question whether their immense power isolates them entirely from human empathy, or if it creates a greater responsibility to bridge the gap between both worlds. The chapter then shifts gears to Jisuk. Jisuk's personal battles in ELECEED range from bitter early series brawls to high-stakes life or death skirmishes against the world's elites, a short-tempered yet fiercely loyal aerokinetic. His conflict reflects his growth from a privileged Shinwa heir into a reliable ally. So for him not being able to use his powers is the most vile thing the author could do to him, and it kind of feels like a cop-out since he didn't have the heart to kill off Jisuk. But that's when Wooin suggests the help of Dr. Delane. Since Curtin specializes in healing magic, he doesn't have the same expertise as Dr. Delane, who's a scientist and experiments with drugs like this on the daily. After running a few tests, Dr. Delane tells them the side effects can be neutralized, but they will have to ask Frame for help with the development. As chapter 408 kicks off, we see Jiwoo telling Kaden and Curtin about the neutralizer, but they don't seem too excited to step to Frame's doorstep, especially after Jiwoo and Kaden took out a few of their members. We also don't know what Frame will ask for in return for their help. They won't ask for Jisuk personally, but rather Shinwa as a whole. They'll try to maximize the profit they gain out of it, which goes back to them using wealth as an advantage. We also find out that the neutralizer is a top-shelf Krabby Patty formula secret recipe that no one is supposed to know about, and if Ji Young asks for it, she could face trouble. Kaden goes on to say Dr. Delane isn't safe either, since at one time Frame tried to kidnap him, and once they figure out he told them about the neutralizer, they'll try to kill him for leaking such vital information. It would be in the team's best interest not to disturb Frame right now. As Jiwoo contemplates what to do next, we overhear Pluton saying if this goes bad, they could ask for Dr. Delane in return for the neutralizer. As the chapter continues, we see a flashback of Woo-Win and Dr. Delane, and genuinely out of all of Jiwoo's friends, Woo-Win has become one of my favorites. The stoic personality, the way he doesn't do no talking, and he's always on site with anybody. The man's amazing. As we continue, we see Ji-Suk telling Jiwoo about the situation, basically rehashing what we already know. And we see that it's starting to take a toll on Ji-Suk mentally as he begins to break down. He goes on to say it's bad enough he lost to Jiwoo, then right after he loses again, then loses his powers. That's 3 L's in a row. No man can handle something so traumatic. But even still, he's become a person who wishes to protect the people around him and won't go through with asking Frame to cure him. The chapter then shows that Gastella and Kaden have been listening this whole time, and Kaden decides, you know what? He's gonna repay Ji-Suk for all the times he brought him snacks and foods over the last few years. As the chapter closes out, we see Kaden heading towards Frame's base. Remember guys, like, comment, subscribe, be fucking dynamic. I love y'all, and I'm gonna catch you in the next one.